Sarah Kenderdine.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you very much.
So you research at the forefront of interactive experiences for galleries, libraries, archives and museums, and you're also professor of digital museology at the EPFL, where you built also a laboratory for experimental museology. And you are also director and lead curator of the EPFL Art Science Initiative.
Yes.
Is that right?
Indeed.
Okay.
EPFL Pavilions, as it's now called, formerly Art Lab.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Good to know. So I think you struck a nerve with your research in this time of pandemic, because the museums were closed for a long time.
Yes.
Now they reopen here in Switzerland like a week ago. In other countries they are still closed. So yeah, how was your experience? So do you think, okay, all this work I've done to digitalize museums somehow
has resonance?
Yes.
It certainly does. It's also spawned new modes of thinking about access. So obviously the work that we do in ultra high resolution imaging, digital is now king for the museum. But it has been around for a long time. Since the early 90s we've had the internet for museums. And so this is an opportunity for them to rethink their strategy and to be more open, to be more experimental, if you like, with their collections, because there's no alternative. The work I build is destined for galleries. I don't put it in museums. I don't put it online. So they often are works that involve multiple stakeholders. So the copyright constraints, like the Montreux Jazz would be a classic example. Not a minute of that can go online because of the copyright around the archive. So we build experiences that go inside these museums, which are now closed. So what did COVID do for getting my imagination going? And it's around aspects of remote access, and I'm exploring a couple of works with the robotics at Professor Floriano, who runs the Intelligent Systems Lab at EPFL, and we're looking at how you can control a blimp, a floating object with a camera, which has a lot of intelligence in it, and you can drive it through a closed museum. Right? So this could spawn a whole new aesthetic framework, actually, for visiting museums. You're remote, you've got this flying object, and you're going right up to Mona Lisa's face, right?
That sounds nice.
Could be fun. You could then start to design exhibitions, in fact, that are only viewable from above, right? You could imagine there's a whole new genre of exhibition making there. The other aspect of that particular way of thinking is what we can do on World Heritage sites. So Floriano has produced a jacket, a haptic jacket. You put on the jacket and you can fly your own drone. Great. So you've got a smart drone. I mean, this is all predicated on 5G technology, but you're on site at an amazing World Heritage site, and you put on the jacket, and there's a big screen like this. And you are able to fly up the face of amazing tombs and across great landscape and things like that. So we're looking at these two modes of access. We could call it aero access, which is entirely comes out of the cultural imaginary of our times, which is how do we get access? How do we continue the rich experiences that we have to visit museums and to visit World Heritage sites that we can no longer do. And I think the other aspect is, if you look at some of the issues around heritage at risk, so mass visitation, Angkor in Cambodia would be a classic example.
Yeah, I was there.
Yeah. But there are many others where visitor numbers are just way in excess of what can be sustained by the site. And so these would be extremely high-end, wonderful experiences, but you won't be treading all over the place.
Now, that was is even the next question. So that you are working on digital heritage and to display all these achievements in a museum and make it more touchable. And there are some ideas. For example, the Fondation Bayer, they made a Nintendo Switch game out of their exhibition about Rodin and Arp they have at the moment. So you could play this Nintendo Animal Crossing in the exhibition. So, but is this a solution for the future?
I think it's opening up modes of access, and I think that the proliferation of this is all good, right? It is spawning these different aesthetic, narrative frameworks, and these are participatory frameworks. These are where visitors aren't looking at the art on the wall or on the standing there. They are engaging in a different way, and I think opening up those modes for participation, interaction, immersion, these are all at the heart of a shift in museology. We call it new museology, and it's really much more democratic, dialogic experiences.
But so, for example, I have a strong connection to Florence, and there you have so
wonderful museums.
Yeah, museums, art everywhere.
Yes.
So there is the Uffizi, which is probably the most important museum of the world.
Yeah, sure.
Probably. And to go there and really see and these original paintings, is it really possible to have such an experience on a digital way, on remote, and not be there and really have, or is this a nostalgic thinking that you have to
I think you have
nearly touch the painting, right?
I think you can have an exceptional digital experience remotely. Let's say you could take your blimp silently traveling through, that could really give you a close-up view that you would never get sitting on the ground, right? Standing there looking at that painting. But the work I do is always in museum space, and it's often staged in conjunction with real objects. So what you see in these circumstances, let's say, I'll give you an example, the Dongwang caves in China, sensational. Most of the caves are closed, 45,000 square meters of mural paintings, but you can't get in. And then you have an object show full of Tang objects, very nice, high-end art show. And you put these digital rendering of these caves in an experiential sense together in the same room as these objects, and you have something that's really powerful. And what Bruno Latour, who's a French philosopher, he talks about the migration of aura. He thinks aura has already left the real object and has migrated to its digital. I would talk about the proliferation of aura, right? And it's that there is an abundance, that these digital experiences have powerful erratic qualities in their own right. And I think what has happened with a lot of digital media, it's powerful, right? But people use it as an info tool, information, not experience. Yeah, it's an information layer that sits next to a real object, let's say. But if you create something that's hugely experiential, which is emerging from this object, or has this object biography, or you could call it a post-original, that these are extraordinary. experiences, and yeah.
Yeah, but you even okay, that probably it's really
Yeah.
a philosophical question, but I have with the use of all this technology, it's not that you're making the original, even the physical place, obsolete somehow. Because I saw a work of you where you can see these paintings on a really on a really old site, and then you had these videos of dancers and then
All right.
putting into the into these
Sure.
murals, I think.
Yes, yes.
And probably this is even the cooler experience than just
Then the real
see-
cave.
Yeah.
Well, that is in fact a real cave that you
Yeah.
can't visit for a start.
Good.
If you get into a cave at this site, you're with about 60 people and one LED torch, right? So you see almost nothing. So being able to make the narrative relationships between the iconography is impossible. And the purpose of that work, and it's actually got an interesting narrative around it itself, but the purpose of that work was working together with the Dongguan Academy, you know, who have quite a didactic approach to interpretation, and to bring to life certain elements of that painting. So we created, I think, the best effect really is a magnifying glass to be able to zoom in at very high resolution, but we indeed filmed Beijing Academy dancers in a green screen studio. We modeled all of the instruments. There are 32 musicians in that painting. And there are about 4,000 musicians in the murals at Dongguan.
Wow.
So these types of things, they were all sonified, and these are really interpretive layers. So it was a classic work in cultural heritage interpretation. It was done at one-to-one scale with the real cave, but it spawned 4 other works. One data set, 5 works in total, seen by over 1 million people now. So big impact in that world of cultural heritage, touring all over the world. And the other works are the augmented reality piece, also one-to-one scale, but you're using a tablet and you're exposing this world. It's like a window on the world. And it's hugely social, and there's no interpretation. Yeah, it's between you and your friends and you and what you overhear. And this was originally done for Art Basel in Hong Kong.
Yeah, okay.
Then it was the Hong Kong Art Fair, so 2012 it changed to Art Basel the year after. And tours all over the world, it gets put into media art shows, gets put into classic object shows. So it has a very broad repertoire, if you like. And the way you contextualize it is the way that people will interpret it. But it has no didactic information. It's not like we're labeling all the Buddhas or the murals or anything. It's pure experience.
Yeah, and the entertainment also a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's entertainment. Not like a movie, but yeah.
So it's another point that you made an installation at the World Heritage Site of Angkor Wat.
Yeah, Angkor. Yeah.
I've been there as well. I was traveling some month in Asia. And
Okay.
I also lived in India for a while.
Oh,
so I was
fantastic.
visiting Taj Mahal or the,
Okay.
this-
I built a museum there, so in South India and Karnataka at Hampi.
Yeah, I read that, and so there are a lot of really
Sensational
stunning,
stuff.
sites and but I also experienced there. Sometimes you had an audio guide or something.
Okay.
But that was
Yeah,
it.
sure.
So it is also what is your idea to make these places then more approachable for visitors, or
Yeah, I mean, if we take the Hampi work, for instance, so it's a World Heritage Site. It's, the core of that site's about 25 square kilometers, and mostly visitors can't come for 4 or 5 days that it takes to trek around that gorgeous boulder field, granite boulder field, to access all those sites. So this is one mode of visiting a lot more. But these things are really, I mean, the museum, the central piece is a panoramic work, which was really, it was commissioned for France India year. It was an artwork that was inspired by going to Hampi, right? Well, we were invited to work at Hampi, and it mixes chromolithography and Indian magical realism together with this sensational imaging of this site. It uses a Swiss camera, actually. It's a nice Swiss story.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Tell me more.
The camera is, and we still shoot on this camera, it's an analog camera, so it's stereographic, so it has 2 camera bodies. It's a slit camera, and you're rotating 220 film inside, and it's exposing panoramas. And the reason that we shoot on that, which is analog, can't get film anymore, got to fly to Japan to get it processed. I mean, this is really getting very esoteric. Is that the digital equivalent of this camera it takes about a minute to rotate, and this analog camera can do it in 6 seconds.
Wow.
If you're shooting stereo, 3D, anything that moves becomes a blur. Blurry stereo is really no fun. I mean, it has a quality, but it really is no fun. And so we want speed, and the analog outperforms the digital.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's made by a company called Seitz, Seitz, which is just out of Zurich, actually. Yeah. So they were the round shot cameras that they made, were very famous in the early years of panoramic camera photography, but shooting on film. They make digital ones now, of course, but not so much in stereo. Nobody really works in true 3D. Yeah, they model it from scratch. They don't shoot it.
So you always, I think where you find all these technologies is also a question. So because you have, I think you are permanently looking for I don't know, you have other works where you have really high res pictures.
Sure.
So how is this a really technical thing, or you have people that help you to find all this?
So it's
technology?
worldwide club of nerds who are interested in this. Yeah, we're interested in super high resolution, like I really am. That one of the systems I built is 120 million pixels in 3D. It's basically 3 times higher resolution than any other viz system that's ever been built. It's hungry for big data. And how do you create big data has been really an abiding interest. So I'm interested in super high fidelity. So it can be very nerdy, and there's lots of great guys out there who are interested in these topics. And I mean, we're working in a research and cultural context, so not necessarily industry budgets. So, but we're also very nimble. We create small fieldwork teams, not a cast of 30, out there in some desert. We're like 3 people. But we are able, we've selected the type of technologies we're using because we can create super high resolution out of it. And on the research side, there's a lot going on, obviously, in computer vision, which enables a lot of this. So it's a really nice merger, and it's one of the great pleasures of being at EPFL is to be amongst the people who are really way down the pipeline, looking at these issues. And so in a way, part of the work I'm doing is bringing these together and framing them so we can use them for cultural experiences. Yeah, same with machine learning, right? It's we're now using it all the time to improve. I wouldn't say improve, but make possible super high resolution models and things of World Heritage sites with only a day's worth of photography. There's no longer are we laser scanning and texturing models. We're able to do it very fast. And so this creation of the mirror world, which is the digital double of the world,
Is
is possible.
But
But is it?
So there in China is a place where you have I think kind of an original Eiffel Tower. You have some original sites,
sure.
and
Yes.
people just go there and make their selfies, and that's it. So
Isn't that the definition of a great work of art now? Is you make a selfie with it, and then it's great. You make work so that it can be used as a selfie backdrop.
Yeah, but
Isn't that terrible? No,
yeah,
it's terrible.
like when I was at Angkor Wat,
Yes.
so there was 7 in the morning, or no, even earlier.
Yeah.
Everyone came there, waiting for the sunrise.
Didn't come.
Right, it was perfectly. And then everyone took the same picture.
Yeah, I know.
Me including.
I know.
But then I turned around and I took a picture of the people.
Yes.
And at the end I thought, why just not one person took the picture with a really good camera and just send it to them? But then I realized it's not the picture, it's the experience.
It's
so
the
people
presence.
have to say,
Yeah.
hey, I was there.
Yeah,
Even me.
absolutely.
So, hey,
So-
Sarah, I was in Angkor Wat. I was
Yeah,
at the Taj
sure,
Mahal. So
sure.
me, David, was... So,
Yeah.
And I think it's not possible that you could bring this experience of Angkor Wat with all the technologies into my room somehow. What do
So
you
I
think?
don't put things in people's living rooms.
No,
right?
okay, yeah.
So that's for
definitely,
sure.
yeah.
I'm not interested in that actually. I
No.
mean, it's possible. The derivatives from our work can go in there. So we are more looking at a stage which is also imbued with certain qualities which are maybe not in excess but different from what you might get at Angkor as you're there as a person. I also think it's about democratization. Not everyone gets to go to Angkor. Now there's so many people at Angkor, the site is being destroyed on a daily basis. So these are real issues, right? It won't be there in 1,000 years. I mean, you know, at Angkor, the major hotels are sucking out all the groundwater from under the site for the swimming pools, etc., and the site is collapsing into the ground. So, you know, there's really serious issues. So partly, we're not trying to replicate that experience. We're producing another experience entirely, which emerges out of sensibilities and artistic inspiration from these places, as well as what we know about them from a historical or an archaeological point of view. So, for instance, you could take the Humpy thing again, because it's a good illustration of this. It has animations in it, 3D animations of Hindu gods, right?
Nice, yeah.
Ganesha, for instance, Lord Ganesha. And this was the first stereographic animation ever done in India. I mean, it's done at really, really high. It took a whole floor of computers to do it in the day that we did it. And you're not going to encounter that on site in that sense, you know. If you go to Humpy, you will see a fraction of the site, and you will not encounter these mythical gods there unless you are a pilgrim or a believer, in which case you will. But
Then you can
yes.
enter.
So somehow the works that we are building are amplifying certain qualities of being there, but they're augmenting them in a way. Yeah. So they're very different experiences to that, and the mirror world concept, which is floating around, you know, the digital twin, etc., has a very didactic background to it. It's not an artistic or cultural background, actually. It's really just technical firepower.
So you are
Yeah.
more interested also in that you can like help to preserve and but also to change the perspective.
I think it's changing the
Yeah.
perspective. It does have this heritage at risk aspect to it because it can alleviate tension on sites. But indeed, it's about bringing this other perspective. It's a reading of the landscape in a sense. informed by great scholarship. Like you read all the right books and you talk to all the right people to create these works.
So you're also a historian?
I'm a maritime archaeologist, so I used to dig up ships. Yeah, Indian Ocean, Oman, China.
Wow. I read that. That was your
yeah, so I used to run the Indian Ocean program for excavation from West Australian Maritime Museum, which is a very early maritime archaeology hub, because there were these Dutch shipwrecks which crashed into the coast, which were filled with gold. So suddenly there were lots of archaeologists there. And I was trained under that school and a curator there. And so Indian Ocean excavation trained Chinese archaeologists to dig up shipwrecks.
And then you bring all this together, the technology, knowledge somehow, the archaeological aspect.
Yeah.
So this is...
So actually the trajectory was, okay, maritime archaeology. Then I had a very clever boss at that time, and he said, Sarah, it's like 93, he says, Sarah, there's something called the World Wide Web, and I want one. He was quite autocratic, right? Yes, sir. So, and it turned out I built the first website in the Southern Hemisphere for any cultural organization, put all the databases online with him, very clever guy. And suddenly we had this, forefront of the World Wide Web. And I quit maritime archaeology, and I went on to build some big portal gateways for different, all the Southeast Asian nations of ASEAN, 10 of them. And all the museums of Australia are a big portal gateway to all their collections. And then in 2000, I built $1 million website for the Olympic Games on Olympia for a museum. And as part of the installation, so the website was great, won lots of awards, but we also took some of it and put it into the galleries with all of these objects that came from Athens. So seminal stuff, really great stuff. And that was the first time I'd put them together in the museum
on
domain.
A really early stage,
and big, big scale and 3D and everything. And it was a total knockout. It was sensational. And I thought, this is much more interesting than the World Wide Web. And I got off the web exactly then and started to build these big machines for galleries and museums that could have these kinds of transformative experiences. So that's the kind of narrative, anyway.
Wow. Yeah, you produce more than, 70, 80 exhibitions and installations.
Yeah.
Or hundreds, or I don't know, a lot.
A lot.
And can you say, okay, this was the most futuristic one somehow? This was the most visionary, and this is really the thing that represents my idea of my works.
I think that changes over time. Yeah, because what interests me right now is the ability to hoover up the world and create extraordinary digital models using the best in machine learning and absolutely thrill visitors, no problem. But where I'm really interested in is in these different modes of access. So let's say this remote stuff, using blimps and drones and jackets and stuff, but also what we do with mass cultural data and how we reframe that experience. So the recent example is this Montreux jazz archive visualization that we did for a full dome. And
can you explain it quickly?
Yes, I will. So when you look up into the dome, you're looking at what looks like a neural network, and the neural net is it has 5,400 nodes. Each node is an artist, and the relationship of one node to another is based on the number of times that artist played with another artist. So the link strength is that. So it gets denser and denser and denser in the middle because these guys were playing, or women were playing more often with each other than anybody else. So if you're on the periphery, you are not very collaborative, basically. And so you're looking up at this thing of these 13,000 videos are contained in this work. It's a subset of 11,000 hours of video of the digitized project. I mean, of the Montreux Jazz over time. It's about a 15-year digitization project. Now UNESCO Memory of the World archives are very significant and very comprehensive. But how do you give people access to that? And most people today have no idea who the jazz greats are or who jazz performers are, but they know what they like to listen to. So in this experience, you're using a spherical ball to navigate inside this world, and you are listening. There is no search engine, there's no text, there's just sound.
And then you go through this dome.
Yeah, you can use this neural net to hear what you like, so 5,400 little tracks. And I really like that one. So the ball has a little button, push that, you go to the next level, which is all the songs that were played at Montreux by that artist. And then if you select again, you end up at the beginning of that whole track. So you can listen to the entire video performance of that. So it's a visual audio interface, if you like, but it has no text, except once you I mean, we can label it any way we like because we have lots of metadata. But you can have all the performers in that band, or you can just have the name of the song, or a mixture of both. Yeah.
But Sarah, what I'm really kind of jealous is, it's I think you can go to any place in this world and say, okay, I want to have access to a library of jazz. Then you go to India and you go into this side and say, okay, I want to digitalize something of this side. Or you go to this, the example you gave me with these dancers into these murals.
Right.
So that sounds really nice. You can go to any place in the world and say, I want to digitalize. I want to go this heritage. I want to preserve it with a bunch of technology. So is that how it really is?
Yeah. So all of these works are done with a huge amount of permissions, negotiations, and licenses. And the custodians of all this material have to agree to what we are doing. So I can give you an example. I've just finished a big project. It was great. You would have loved this one.
Oh, tell me more.
It's called the Atlas of Maritime Buddhism. So it's a spread of Buddhism from South India through Southeast Asia, up into China, down into Korea and Japan. So it was 5 years of field work in 8 countries. Should be 12, but we ran out of cash. And we've been doing stereographic panoramas, digital and analog, ambisonics for sound, gigapixel imaging and spherical video. Wow. Team of 3. Yeah, and but the permission stack is this high, right? And it takes a year to get permission to go into some of these sites. They're very sensitive, and rightly so, because many of these countries have been, most of the best treasures from these places are sitting, in museums in Europe or the UK or America. And so we also got access to a whole range of objects. So we're doing sites, World Heritage sites and amazing temple sites all over. Thousands of sites, by the way. It was a big project, and we were also doing photogrammetry of really significant objects, and helped by the Buddhist community also, the worldwide network of Rinpoches who believe in this type of education, I guess. And the first installation is actually happening now in Foguanshan Monastery in Taiwan. It's the largest monastery in the world. The museum gets 10 million visitors a year. So it's like this enormous undertaking. And it's a big digital experience of this particular narrative. Everybody knows the overland stuff. Nobody talks about the maritime stuff. So it's also a kind of counterbalancing of the contemporary One Belt, One Road by the Chinese government. This expansion of trade emerging from China. In the ancient times, it went from India. And Buddhism allowed sailors to travel, it gave them protection and so on, and you get this proliferation of manifestations of Buddhism, different forms of Buddhism, and you get this extraordinary flow of pilgrims coming from, and monks coming from China to collect manuscripts in India, Sanskrit, translate them into Chinese, take them back. Big epic journeys, 27-year trips.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm going to pop out and get some,
But now you are stocked. You cannot go anywhere.
Yes.
So you're just sitting at home and.
Yeah, teleconferencing with bunches of teams who are installing the museum. Yeah. There. So that's happening right now.
Okay, so it's still possible for you to work with people in Asia.
Yeah,
or
totally.
Wherever,
so it's
not go personally there.
I mean, it's heartbreaking not to go. I can assure you, after doing all that work, there will be another exhibition in Hong Kong, and I won't get there either. But then there will be a world touring show, and hopefully things will be better by then. So, yes.
One thing is, when you are traveling so much, I guess, and you are working all over the world, when you have time for, to be at the EPFL and how much you're running this museology lab there, you are a professor there. So when is this?
When do we do that bit? No, it's all concurrent, right? And a lot of the students will be working on some of the exhibitions we're building. But if we want to create seminal work, a certain amount of travel is possible. But also this shifting towards not on-site work right now, but mass archives. So I'm particularly interested in moving image archives. So Montreux was one example, but we just have a really major grant now to take over 100,000 hours of video from various collections in Switzerland and also in the Netherlands, and to create the data browsers of the future. So it's a combination of machine learning, visual analytics, and interaction and data streaming designs, but in situated settings. So not for the internet, for the visitor. Because all these archives are copyright constrained. So you don't have to go on site. You can work with any of the materials. I mean, this is one of the very abundant times that we're in, right? And the fact that museums can now reap the reward of the effort they put in to digitize is what they should be doing. And they can do.
And what is the reward at the end?
The reward is to use this material in new ways and to create exceptional experiences that would otherwise not be possible. I mean, I can give you an example of that. We built Museum Victoria, a data browser. It's the largest museum in Australasia. Like the British Museum, it shows only a fraction of its collection. So the British Museum shows 0.4% of its collection. Museum Victoria's got 16 million objects, 4 museums, and it shows 0.8%. Right? So we did a quick export from the content management system of the museum. We got 100,000 records in 15 minutes. This is all the metadata, high-resolution images, etc. And we created a massive data browser in 360 3D across 18 themes, and you're able to, it's like a real-time curating machine. Once again, has no search interface, right? It's like a serendipitous browsing. You see something you like. Then it's connected, and very explicitly connected across different thematics, and you are following your interests, in this massive world. And this is permanently installed in the museum for visitors when they come,
But the good thing is that all these things are not available on the web, right?
They're not available, no.
Because that leads me to another
But
question.
also it's the nature of the experience, right? We are building fully embodied, immersive social spaces for people, not I'm in my living room with my coffee cups on my nice white table, etc. We're trying to create exceptional experiences.
And you have to go to this place to have this experience also, because I think that's, people always think when it's a digital experience you can also have it in the living room.
Well, you can. I mean, that's the point. You can, but would you?
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah.
But it leads me to another question. Like a week ago, a digital artwork by an artist called People sold for $6.6 million. And it's a video of video art, and the video is also available on the web for free, so everyone can watch it. But with the using of blockchain technology, it has now changed hands, and that means that one person owns the original of this video. And with the blockchain technology, you could, you can make sure, okay, this person is the owner of the original, and when it's sold to someone else, then you can transfer somehow the right of this original. So that's kind of a digital art that is supported by blockchain technology.
What else can it do? So what it can do is give you collective ownership. So you can have bits of an artwork. Cool, right? So I can give you an example of this too. I'm doing a show coming up soon for the EPFL pavilions. It's called Deepfakes Art and Its Double. And it has two works that are relevant to this discussion. One is, it's owned by, the project is by Kuka, but they have a Picasso painting, and it's owned by a whole range of Swiss people. They each bought a share. So collective ownership of a single painting. That's interesting. As a corollary to that, in this exhibition, we have a work by Yves Sussman, who created she took a painting and she created a movie about that painting. It's almost like bringing the painting to life. She had her artist copy, so it was collected by various museums. This is 2002, right? Collected by various museums, so it's in the Whitney, it's in MoMA, etc. And she took her artist copy and she worked with snark.art in New York, and she created 89 seconds, atomized 89 seconds, and basically she split it up and sold it on the blockchain. So when you want to watch this movie, you have to get all the owners to agree. Okay, so then you have viewings where pixels are missing, right? So there's this whole new sort of articulation of the original work, depending on which bit is missing or not. And we will show the blockchain work in real time in the galleries of EPFL pavilions. Okay. Yeah, and I think that the blockchain potentially allows museums to start really getting into the digital world because it can protect the ownership that they want. They want ownership of this stuff, so when they digitize it and release it, if it's got a kind of blockchain component to it, they will be able to trace it. They are the owner. And I think in a digital sense it had to come along because these copyright problems are so extreme for many of these organizations. This allows that to happen.
Now, I think ownership is really important in the context of art, right? Because this person was like paying like $6.6 million for a video that
could be replicated.
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, if you want to protect the art market, you've got to figure out how to do it, and the blockchain does that. Yeah, the new emerging digital art market. Yeah.
I'm wondering also how to preserve this kind of digital art for, I don't know, in 100 years, 2 years, 200
Right.
years, how we can put our digital society into a museum. You know what I mean? Like, is because things are not physical anymore.
Physical anymore.
Things are, I don't know, in this stream of
Yes.
content
Yeah,
disappear somehow.
Yeah. I mean, there are wonderful initiatives like the Wayback Machine and the Internet Archive, which attempt to archive the internet. This is like, you can imagine how difficult that is. There are other emerging technologies which are interesting when you talk about preservation, storage. I mean, every museum looks at this problem, this data curation problem, and it's very expensive. And you're constantly migrating this material, and you're just migrating the raw assets. What about the experiences you build out of it, right? So the curation and conservation of digital art is the big problematic, especially interactive arts that you might put in a gallery. But also in an EPFL project that they did on the Montreux Jazz with Twist Bioscience in Silicon Valley, is they took two songs, Deep Purple, Smoke Over the Water, and Tutu by Miles Davis, and they encoded it into, those two files, into synthetic DNA, okay? And you can then de-encode the DNA sequence, and you can listen to the original song, okay? So it was a WAV file that they digitized, and then they get out, and it's perfect, right? There's no change. So suddenly we have a storage medium which isn't on a hard drive, if you like. It's still kind of zeros and ones, but and what it means is the whole Montreux archive, 11,000 hours, would fit into a grain of sand. Theoretically, they say it will be stable for 5,000 years. It means all the data of the world will fit into a suitcase, which will radically reposition how we think about archiving and how objects travel in time and space, right?
Wow.
Wow. I love to tell this story
Yeah.
because museums, they look at the work I'm doing and they're thinking, oh my goodness, how are we going to sort of look after the data? And or we can't possibly afford it or whatever. And in fact, these are the types of visionary initiatives that we need and are possible in the research context. That these kinds of things may provide a future answer to this kind of problem. Yeah.
Wow, that's these numbers are really amazing. You are working for the EPFL, so but I'm wondering, is this like this sounds? You need a budget for all of this, so.
Sure. So I write research grants.
Yeah.
Big ones. Successful.
Yeah, good.
Not all the time.
It's an interesting work.
And there are a lot of people interested in the work we're doing. So there is commissioned work, but it's commissioned as research framework. So it has. We don't define the outcome between two partners. It's not a transactional relationship. It's really an exploration together of a particular topic. And those are the two main modalities of. We very rarely do contract research, which is very typical at EPFL, actually. But we can also spin off companies, small ones, startups, yeah? So I'm looking at a project that I'm doing together with Engagement Migros and 24 Swiss museums. It's a tool that we developed for harnessing the voice of the visitor. So you've got a visitor in a museum.
Yeah.
We could say it's an evaluation tool, but it's about socialization, embodiment, learning, and you can take pictures, draw pictures, leave audio files, and there are a whole series of interactive graphics.
And it's kind of a platform
It's
for
a
all
platform
these
to
museums.
speak with the visitor and get them to feed into strategy, into future exhibitions, into all sorts of stuff, actually, that museums are interested in. Now, most museums are only collecting how many people come in the door, you know? And this is a totally different framework for that. And it streams the data in real time to a website. It aggregates and visualizes all the material.
Also on social media, I guess.
No, it's a closed loop.
Yeah.
I mean, there's lots of privacy issues in something like this, and the museums are using it to improve their strategy, but you can stream the data anywhere. So we often will, you're able to draw a picture, let's say, and these will be appearing in the galleries in real time. So the visitors can contribute to the space somehow. But this is possibly going to be commercialized, right? And that's one aspect of EPFL is their innovation park. It's about 1/3 of the university is doing this.
Sure.
It's turning things into product.
Which is nice. And there are a lot of spin-offs
Lots.
of the ETH and the EPFL.
Exactly.
Which is a good approach to...
Yeah, and I mean, there's many, many young kids doing this, which is really exciting. Yeah.
I want to talk also quickly about this art pavilion.
Yes.
What is it exactly? So it's also the ETH president Joel Meso was explaining this approach of art and bringing art and science together.
Together, indeed. I mean, I would say if you look at most scientists, they're working in a very artistic mode, actually. The way in which they experiment and think about things can be very artistic. So they're not so far apart, anyway. I think we call it the EPFL Pavilions. It's an amplifier for art, science, and society. And it uses experimental curatorship, if you like, to shine a light on some of the possibilities that emerge out of science, but in an artistic lens. So what we're not doing is science communication. That's for other people, like the media comm at the EPFL. They are communicating the didactic side of it. What we are looking at is its potential in the public domain as a modality of experience which is artistically inspired. This gives the scientists this whole new repertoire that they are very interested in. You know, if you look at the Lastro Lab, the astrophysics, everybody's hungry for astrophysics. And so the opportunities for them to show material in the world is big. And they have very powerful and amazing data sets. But how do you reframe that into not this is how the galaxy works, but into some wonderland, I guess, of aesthetic experience with different forms of narrative, which are more artistically inspired. So that's what it's doing. It's really, really privileged to be in this playground of great scientists, to be able to do it, but it's also the overhead to do it, because it's really trying to work with the scientists to do this project. It's not bringing great art from around the world and assembling it necessarily. We can do that, and we have an exhibition at the moment called The Nature of Robotics, which is largely artistic works that are comments on an expanded definition of robotics with a central piece which is EPFL roboticists. But the other great opportunity, and not many places are doing this actually, is working with the scientists on site to bring this stuff into the public domain. So it's really a great opportunity, and it's big, and it overlooks the lake, and I invite you there anytime.
Please, there was...
And it opened last week.
Yeah. Perfect. That's a good timing.
Yes.
It's probably a final question. What is when you go to an exhibition or to a museum, how is your experience then? So you are walking around and think, okay, nice, but probably they could, I don't know, like make a more... let's say a movie, or you could make this element, put this element into the exhibition.
Sure.
So how is this for you? Or you always think all the things are so, they are not moving. It's kind of
No.
it's just a painting hanging on the wall.
No, because I'm really into objects and spaces and things. So when I go to an exhibition, I do notice that I'm very obsessed with scenography. So I'm looking at detail. How did that window ledge get put like that? Like, why is it like, and what kind of optical effect does that give? And, how can we use that? Was that cheap? Often it's like that. But I am just as comfortable in an art show of physical artworks as much as the digital, because I'm interested in the juxtaposition. I went to a fabulous, it hasn't opened yet, but yesterday I was at the Rietberg Museum, and they have a really fabulous show opening on Thursday. Name I'm not quite sure of, but you will see the ad. And what it is an archaeologist in the 30s who assembled a team of artists and went all over the world and created one-to-one scale replicas of rock art. So you have stuff from Indonesia, Australia, Europe, all over the world. And it's a massive hang of this work. So it's the original fakes of this rock art. And it is a knockout. And apparently this exhibition toured like in the 30s and went to the Metropolitan probably in New York. And this is where Picasso saw it. And this inspired Picasso to paint these paintings that he painted. So that it's a huge reference point for many, a whole genre of artists who saw this material for the first time. And I think it's phenomenally interesting in relation to what we're doing in the digital.
Because you're also referencing...
Because in a way we're doing the same.
Yeah.
And, what's different with some of the works we make, which is important to the teaching of art history, is that we have the correct spatial relationships preserved. So this wall and that wall, and you can see them out of the periphery of your eye. What happens in a book is everything gets cut down, and you no longer have the spatial relationships which are absolutely fundamental to the interpretation of art. And so that's different in the digital. You can really help preserve those spatial relationships, whereas these are sections of rock art. But it's still utterly sensational. I highly recommend it.
Okay.
Yeah, I was really knocked out.
No, thanks a lot. So then I will go there definitely.
Yeah.
If I have
Opens on Thursday. I think it's a virtual opening, but the physical exhibition will be there, I guess, on Friday this week. Yeah.
Nice. So thanks a lot for this insights you gave me in this really interesting work you are doing, and which I think is really important for our future. And thanks a lot.
Great. Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
It's
no,
really
thanks.
nice.